Hey car friends! Today we're in the garage with my 1987 Mazda RX-7 Turbo 2. Why are we in the garage, you might ask? Well, it's not running right.
Now that's just sad.
What that means, I don't know. I don't know what the problem is yet, and we're gonna find out together. The point of this video is if you have one of these cars, or really a lot of this will apply to any car in general, what you need to do when your car's not running right. Could mean a multitude of things, but when we really break it down, every engine, rotary, piston, anything that's an internal combustion engine in our cars is gonna need air, fuel, and spark to run right. And to run right, it's gonna need all three in exactly the amounts at exactly the right time that it needs. So what I'm gonna do with you is diagnose spark, fuel, and air and find out which one's causing my problem. I'm not really sure any of it's gonna be perfect, so we're probably gonna do some troubleshooting on all of it, and I've ordered the parts to counteract the most likely problems with all three. So we'll kind of go through that together. All right, so first up, because honestly it needs to be done on this car anyway, and because it's a likely cause of the symptoms I'm having, a rough idle and breaking up at the higher RPMs or under load, I'm gonna tackle spark. So when you're doing spark, whether it's any car, but in this case the RX-7, which is thankfully very simple, a thing you're gonna wanna look at is your spark plug wires. Now, I have a new set of them here from NGK. You'll see those in a second. Those are really nice for the rotary because you've got blue and black for leading and trailing respectively, which is nice. I mean, just one less way you can mix up your wires. So I always like to make things idiot proof if I can. And then also, I've got a set of new plugs. 2 leading, 2 trailing. That's for the rotary. If you're on another car, obviously that's gonna be different. But why did I buy this stuff before actually finding out if what I have's bad? Because I don't know when these were done, and this is a regular maintenance item. So you wanna make sure it's done regular. That also being said, it is a rotary. It is a pre-mixed rotary as well, so spark plugs, I don't expect a super long life out of them, and really you shouldn't either, just because running so rich with so much oil in the fuel all the time is gonna build up gunk on the plugs. It's just gonna happen, name of the game with this car. So we're gonna pull what's there and look for clues to see if it's been causing problems or not, but we're gonna reassemble with new. Let's get into it. So here is our engine bay that we're working with. You'll notice all of this horrible wiring that needs to be addressed later, but for now what we're worried about is these 2 bad boys. Those are our coils. We have our trailing coil and our leading coil respectively. And wires coming off of both. So you can see this actually already has NGK wires on it, hence the blue and black, and then it's running down there to our plugs. Hopefully, you can see our trailing and our leading, which are different boots. So what I'm gonna do, and what I recommend you do as well, is mark all of these just with a Sharpie for what wires are what, so that way you can copy it when you put it back together. Fortunately, on these cars though, the coils themselves are labeled with their outputs. You've got T1, T2 for trailing, and then L1, L2 for leading as well. Makes it super easy and really hard to mess up. But anyway, I'm gonna pop these wires off, and then I'm gonna get in there with a socket. If you have a spark plug socket, that's great. But one thing you're gonna run into is the RX-7s specifically. Let me get you a light in there so you can see. The plug, yeah, that's a lot better. You can see in the housing where it goes, it's a pretty tight fit, so you're gonna need somewhat of a thin-walled socket, and I'm not super worried about a spark plug socket, but if you are, go for it. Anyway, I'm gonna pull those, and then we'll take a look at them together, see how they are. Okay, plugs are out. So I've grouped them here by our front and rear rotor, and then I went leading, trailing. But if you're familiar with these cars, you already know something's wrong here. When you look, let me see, yeah, when you look at that. Because for one, that's all black and gooped up, which I kind of expected. But the biggest problem is that is not an RX-7 spark plug. Let me show you why. So we will dig into Oh no, I did not plan this. Gotta open my Ziploc. All right, there we go. Dig into our bag of new ones here. And for what it's worth, I just went with the OE recommended NGK, because I like NGK, they make a good plug. This is what it should look like. Now it's pretty unique. See how there's no hook like every other car on the road? And instead the face looks like that. That is so that this is flat, because it's going to be stuck in where your rotor is spinning. I apologize for my garage being a mess. But anyway, this makes it so you can get spark directly in the combustion chamber without, like, you know, absolutely grenading the tips of your rotors. So very good we're doing this, because now we'll have the right stuff in there. Now leading and trailing are different, so make sure you get 2 of each. Those will be spec'd for you. I can try and do some wizardry here and put the part numbers in for you. But long and the short of it, we know that for sure our rear rotor has got some gunky gunk built up in there. And our front has less, but it's still got a little bit of gooch grease, and they're all the wrong plugs anyway, so congrats. Time to put new plugs in. It's always a good idea too. I mean, throw some anti-seize on these. You'll like yourself later for it. But anyway, I'm gonna go back to the time lapse, put these back in, and wires, it's super easy. Basically just carbon copy. Whoops, carbon copy what comes off. Just pop them off the coils. You've got a cutie little bracket down here that holds it all in place, and then throw the new ones on. One more reason to go with NGK is, as you can see below our part number there's a T for trailing, and they also give us an L for leading. That's actually just super useful. I didn't even know that. Okay, so now that we have the proper plugs in and new plug wires, I doubt it, but let's see if that fixed our problem. I'll start up the car and we'll find out together. Unfortunately, I was right. That did not fix our problem. Maybe it improved our situation because those plugs certainly weren't great, but on to step 2, which is checking for vacuum leaks, which I actually just bought a special tool for. Also, side note, something that should have kicked me off to the knowledge that my plugs were wrong is they came out with a 16 millimeter, and I remembered from, I had a Series 5 NA car before this. The plugs being an ungodly large size. Well, the ones that went in, the correct plugs, are a 21, so you can see that was not right. Should have been a giveaway. But anyway, I'll break out the smoke tester, show you how to set one up, and we'll see if we can find a vacuum leak. Hopefully you can see this here. The smoke tester I'm going to use today to check for vacuum is from Autoline Pro. I'm not sponsored by them, but from everything I've seen, they seem like a great company. So if this works, I'm happy to endorse them, because basically I I've held off buying one of these smoke testers because normally they're pretty cost preventative. Like the Harbor Freight one, for example, is $500. Now this one was right around $100 for the whole kit. So let's set it up, and if it works, I'm gonna say it's well worth the money. So you gotta pull this zip tie out. Why? Cut here. I cut. Okay, well, there's a zip tie that's got to come out, and then I'll pop this lid off. You're going to have a little lever that you're going to use to pull this top hook setup off, and then just lift the cap off. Oh, there we go. Okay. I see what we're doing now. Then you're going to pull the zip tie out from inside the can. Okay, yeah, that's just for shipping to keep the wick intact. They do specify that their wick is pre-soaked, so I'm gonna take their supplied oil here that they came with a little like dripper cap, and then also just a normal screw-on cap with no way to let water or oil out. So fill it up and we can get going here. I do have this little fill ball they say to throw in. That's going to let me see what the level is of their smoke fluid, so I don't put too much gooch grease in. That's just a little marble that drops in. And I will pop the seal on this oil. Now it's worth noting, they got their proprietary oil. They sent me a bottle with it, but you know, you can run it on just normal baby oil too, and it'll work fine. And it looks like I might be able to just let this whole bottle get in here. Yeah, okay. So you can put your full bottle in, just be careful you're not getting up to where your air ports are, because I feel like that's probably not great to do, but okay. Now that that's taken care of, I'll drop the top back on, throw this little keyway on first, swing this on top of here, get it to where it can line up on the two pegs on the sides, and then you just twist this to apply pressure, and then it'll O-ring seal at the top. Okay. So this is their little built-in air compressor that I guess just sits on top. Kind of slick. I mean, I'm a fan of that design. Oh, I'm not, okay. So learning moment for both of us here. You're gonna wanna put this keyway the opposite way if you have one with the built-in air compressor, because otherwise your air compressor won't wanna sit on top, and that makes it a lot less cool. So now we'll tighten it down the proper way. Yeah, okay. So the air compressor on top, then they give you sorry there, my GoPro overheated on me. So anyway, I set it up now. Basically all you gotta do, pop this lid off, fill it up. The bottle they send it with is enough to fill it pretty much all the way. Then you're gonna screw the cap back on, set this on top, thread in their little hook that conveniently hangs it from the little hood latch there, which is super nice. Plug in their power supply, which has a switch for heat, and then heat auxiliary, which I'm assuming will run this fan when we're ready for it. Let's test it. Yep. Okay, so that runs my air compressor, which that was a good little puff of smoke there, so I think it's almost ready. Then you just hook it up to your battery with the alligator clips provided. Then they give you a line of vacuum hose. You're gonna slide that on there. They give you this little prong that's pretty nice. In my case, I'm gonna use their little vacuum adapter. I bought it, or sorry, not not vacuum. It's like an air bladder, like an old school blood pressure tester. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second. They say to let it heat up for a minute. It's only been about 30 seconds, and it's smoking. I mean, you can see that. So basically what this is gonna do for us is when that's hooked up to the motor, which I'm gonna pull the can filter off to run it, anywhere smoke comes out is a vacuum leak, and I'm expecting there to be a few of those. So anyway, let me pull this air filter off and then we'll start diagnosing. So like you probably saw, they did not tighten that intake down, which can't be helping me. But anyway, I'm gonna start using this attachment here. Now, I ordered this, but you can get certain kits from Autoline that come with it. See how when I pump that up with this whole hand thing, it fills stuff? Pretty cool. So this will fill like an exhaust tip, in my case, an intake charge pipe, really anything cylindrical, which is pretty cool. You just let the air out with that. So I'm gonna set this in my intake, then I'm going to pump it up inside my intake, and it is seeming pretty plugged, so I'll grab my hose from the smoke tester, start my fan from the integrated air compressor, and now that we've got smoke, plug it into the end of my plug, and we see where it comes out. If it's nowhere, I'm going to be shocked. We'll wait a second for it to come up to temp, so to speak. I'm sure it's got to fill all of this nonsense with smoke before it really does much. It's not bleeding back out of the intake, so we know our plug's doing its job. I'm going to grab a flashlight so we can see better too. By flashlight, I meant big old Milwaukee work light. Now this is a blessing and a curse. I kind of expected this motor to just be looking like a Subaru meat right now with the amount of smoke pouring around, but so far I'm really not seeing anything, which is confusing. Oh, there's smoke, but from where? Oh no, that looks deep. So it's coming from somewhere under the manifold, which is cool. Top mount intercooler in the way. Maybe I was too soon to say that we weren't going to have smoke pouring from all around this motor. Okay, what are you? Alright, so the GoPro overheated, but I took the top mount off and then I've adapted. Now I'm feeding smoke in through there to hopefully help me find my leak a little bit easier. Let's see here. Clear that up, since we don't need old smoke causing new problems. Huh. It's looking like a bunch of little leaks, which is not... Whoop. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit you guys there. Not my favorite outcome. It's definitely leaking around the throttle body. So all those pegs are leaking. Oh, this is the Corolla. This one wet. Okay, well, I won't make you guys sit around for this. It's just gonna be me weaseling around trying to find the source of the smoke. You get the principle. I'll try and show you up close when I figure it out.
A few moments later.
I did find my leak. It is a decent sized vacuum leak, and it honestly explains the problems I'm having. Basically, between where the lower manifold and the block meet, and trust me, I tried to get a picture, but it just was not working. I have a big leak. I got creative, actually. Little pro tip I figured out, you can maybe try this at home, is I used my fan. I kicked my fan on without turning the car on, obviously. And I was able to blow the excess smoke out of the way while I was looking for where the fresh smoke came from, so I didn't completely choke out. But anyway, the long and the short of it, I'm gonna need to pull my whole intake assembly off, and that's gonna be a lot more involved than a diagnostic video. So anyway, good news is I have already planned on doing this eventually. FD RX-7 manifolds sitting in a box over there, ready to go on with adapter plates to work on the FC. And well, I guess Now it's as good a time as any to put those on, isn't it? So that'll probably wrap this one up. I would have showed you more about fuel diagnostic, but really just turn the key, make sure you hear the fuel pump. If you don't, something's probably wrong. Then you can go a step further. If you've got a fuel pressure gauge, check your fuel pressure gauge. I'm thankful to have one of those. I highly recommend putting one in. Once you've done that, make sure you have fuel pressure. Pull your fuel line off of the fuel rail, make sure you got fuel there. You can pull your injectors, make sure they're firing. That's really all there is to that. That being said, the build series is starting a little bit early. I think the next thing to do is order a set of gaskets, start putting on the manifolds. As I'm doing that, I'm gonna do the fuel systems. You'll learn about that. Everything's going to AN. I'm taking the stock injectors out, putting ID 1050s in, radium fuel pressure regulator, the billet fuel rails, all that fun stuff. And I'm gonna wire up a Haltech Elite 1500 because I have no clue how to tune the piggyback that's in this. And frankly, it's just not worth it. So all that stuff's on the shelf. It's just a matter of doing it together, I guess. So I guess I'll have to change the title of this video from what I planned to RX-7 Turbo 2 build. From crappy to brappy, maybe? I don't know. I'll have to come up with a cute name for it, but episode 1, finding out it's broken. I'll catch you next time for some fun where we take it apart and put it back together different. Yay! Hey, thanks for joining me by the fire. I grabbed you a beer. This one's for you. Here you go. Well, you made it to the end of the video. A little bit less fun than I planned for my first time doing this, but you know, what do you want? Really appreciate you watching. I know I don't really know what I'm doing yet, but I really would like to find out. Love working on cars and would love to share it with you guys. So stick along for the ride. Feel free to subscribe. I promise there's more coming for real this time. I'm gonna stick to it. And anyway, I'll catch you in the next one.